Go, Sandy.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living. It's the last Thursday in the month, and it's time for LifeLine. It is truly a joy for me to welcome each and every one of you here this evening to participate in what I know is going to be a really, really exciting and stimulating conversation with our guest. We'll introduce him in a little bit, but you know, as we always begin all things, I'd like to invite our pastor, Reverend Anshan, to do our opening affirmative prayer.
Thank you, Sandy. Good evening, everyone. Special welcome to Gregory, our guest. And I know that as we just go within and just recognize that power, that presence in our midst, mirroring its love, its joy, in through as this perfect idea called LifeLine. I know for each one of us, open and receptive now to the sharing, the truth, the fun, the laughter, and indeed the pearls of wisdom that we will indeed embody. We give thanks for this evening. We give thanks for Sandy, our facilitator. We give thanks for Vance, our technical support, and very especially Gregory again. And for all you who are listening, I know a truly wonderful experience. I release my word to that law that simply now demonstrates a wonderful experience for each and every one. This is the truth. I know that it is so, and so it is.
So it is. So it is. Thank you, Reverend Ann. You know, friend, I was just thinking that this is almost 3 years since we've been doing LifeLine. We have had multiple guests across this Centers for Spiritual Living community, both overseas guests, persons residing in places as far away as France. And we have had a number of our own family, Temple of Light family, sharing much about their lives and their experience with us. Now, you know, LifeLine came about in 2020, just at the height of the pandemic. And we saw it as an opportunity to just connect with our spiritual family, connect with persons who might have been feeling a little challenged because of the pandemic. We call it an hour of connectivity, livity, love, and laughter. And it created conversations with our guests in terms of how we could thrive during the challenge of the time. And we wanted to be able to provide spiritual tools and strategies to enable people to rise above and consciously respond to the challenges of the time, and to support persons in shifting from a fear-based consciousness to a faith-based consciousness. And so this evening, we have another very special guest. And what's very special about our guest this evening is that he has been with the Temple of Light from he was, well, he'll tell us how old he was when he started here. And his dad brought him, his mom and dad brought him. But we now have, over the years, he has evolved into a very, very powerful professional. He has 3 degrees, a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and Business, a Master's in Accounting, and a Bachelor of Laws. He has worked across several industries in his career and is now working as a data privacy consultant. He'll tell you a little bit about that as we go along. He's here to share insight into his journey and how channeling a deep sense of belief in self helped to chart his path and carve a way for him as a very, very established and not to be fooled around with professional. He's been a former youth speaker. In fact, we know we can't call him on him at any time, so we're not going to call him former anything. He is a really powerful youth speaker at the temple. And he is now here to tell us about this critical concept in his life that has also nurtured him and was nurtured by the Temple of Light. So I invite you to open your hearts and get ready to just experience this powerful young man. And his name is Gregory Robinson. Welcome, Gregory. It is a joy to have you. And, you know, I've admired you from a long time. You know, I've watched you grow from a little boy into a young man. And it's hard to remember the little boy because the young man that you have evolved into has just flourished, you know, and I know that the seed was there, but we now are seeing some great fruit. And so I want you to just give us a sense of what has your journey been like? When did you start? Where did it begin? How did it evolve? And how did it get you to where you are today?
Oh man, Auntie Sandy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't even know where to begin to tell you. I mean, the first thing I called was that, you know, you've had guests from France. Despite my background, I'm very much here in Jamaica with you. So the Golden Gate Bridge behind me is really just, you know, special effects. But in terms of the journey, honestly, I don't even know where to begin. You know, I think for everything, you know, I mean, all acknowledgements to God, of course, you know, but it's certainly in terms of, you know, if you're talking about the Temple of Light, you know, it really kind of starts with the parents. It started from before we started coming, to be fair, but it definitely starts with the parents. You are right. It was many years ago by my count, for simplicity, let's go with 20 years. Let's go with 20 years. So it's been a good while now.
You would have been how old when you came to Temple?
I was around 9.
9, okay.
You're right. So I think it was around 9. Yeah. So, you know, a long time ago. You are right. Very little boy. Definitely a foot plus of height difference from way back when, and you know, long time. And you know, it really has been quite a journey. Really has been quite a journey. You know, just even as you were speaking, I just kind of started thinking about the times where I would kind of, you know, whether I'd be walking into Sunday school or just passing. You were one of the many, you know, I was accustomed to seeing every Sunday, and, you know, just very friendly, lively, you name it. But in terms of the journey, yeah, so in terms of the Temple Life journey, that's how long ago it started. And, you know, the funniest thing about all of this is that you have this environment around you and you don't really think about it. It's
like a fish doesn't know what water is.
Right. You know, as far as they're concerned, the water to the fish is oxygen to us, right? It's air to us. So, you know, you don't really think about it, but you have this very kind of, I wouldn't say I never thought about it, but you definitely don't think about it the same way now as I did then, right? So you have this very kind of warm, comfortable environment, you know, with people just being very encouraging, creative, so many different outlets, so many different people, you know. And I have to really go ahead and really emphasize the encouragement, because, you know, when I think of everyone on this call right now, right, and then when I think about, you know, different individuals like, you know, Uncle John and Auntie Carmen, and just so many people, even early this year, when I was present, you know, I was speaking to the congregation. I mean, just the excitement of so many stalwarts who've been there for so long, who would have watched me through the same journey that you watched, right? And the excitement on the face to see us back and all that, and still ever present and participating and all that. It means a lot. It means a lot, and it kind of all comes together for, you know, why I'm here today. So, in terms of how I've developed into the person I am today, so, you know, today we're talking about, you know, belief, faith. Listen, you can trace it any which way you like. The concept is very clear. Taking that step to believe, right? Just taking that step to believe. You know, one of the things I've found is sometimes you don't really appreciate belief until you have to work hard to find it. You have to work hard to find it, right? So, you know, when you're growing up and, boy, you know, you're playing your sports, you're having fun, you're going to school, you're eating lunch. And listen, I was no different than any child. No, I get picked up from school and they tell, and, you know, dad asked me, how is school? And I said, lunch was good. lunch was great. That's
Yeah.
really all it was, right? And say, boy, all right, what your teacher talk about? Such and such, and we did a little science and did a little general knowledge. What you had for lunch? Well, we had a very decadent, very tasty sweet and sour chicken, with some white rice and XYZ, because I can give him the whole story. And
You remember the lunch, but you didn't remember the lessons.
well, I remember the
More
lessons
than
well
so.
enough, but the lunch was my priority. The lunch was absolutely my priority, and I really didn't care to talk about anything else, So, but even from then, you can see that there was a belief in him, there was a belief in mom, there was a belief in those around you. But the thing about having that belief is when others have belief, that's great, that's excellent. You need it, but a lot of that will mean next to nothing if you can't find it. And again, if you can't find it when it matters the most, right? So look, I by the time I started going to Temple of Light, I would have been on the tail end of Vaz or the beginning end of Campion. It's a little foggy, but going through that journey, and of course, going to Sunday school with, even some classmates of mine, so people with school at me at Campion, some at Andrews, this and that, and moving through the years and participating in the different things and just really trying to become a well-rounded individual. So I was participating, as you recall, speech and youth participation back in the day, and then of course at school, this organization, that sport, that organization, you name it, and just trying to be well-rounded because there are a lot of things that interested me, and why not? Why not? I was always in a space where you're interested in something cool. If you like it enough, just give it your best go, right? Just give it your best go, and that's all there is to know. Because I was definitely fostered in an environment where there really wasn't somebody, perhaps for the most part, there just wasn't somebody saying, boy, you can't do this and you can't do that. If you believe you can do it, give it a shot. If there's a good reason why we think it may not be in your best interest to do so, now that's a different story. But it was never a matter of you are unable to do this, right? And while there were different personalities around me, everyone in their own way had that message for themselves. Now, I would say that, I was a confident young man, still a young man today, just an older young man. And I am confident now, I would say, but the difference is you appreciate these things more when you have to find that confidence. And I think we can all appreciate as you get older, right? You get older, you encounter harder and harder obstacles. So you get to, for instance, so you mentioned the bachelor's degree, right? So I get to undergrad, and we have a little situation there where I actually started out as a computer science major, and then I realized I don't think this is the direction for me. I'm not enjoying it a certain way. I don't think this is the direction for me. A year and a half in, at a very small school, smaller than my own high school actually, a very small school, and so there weren't a lot of majors to choose between. I was there very much panicked, saying, "All right, boy, I don't know what I'm going to switch to," and this and that. Conversation with one of the parents, and listen, I know you'll think it through. If you want some guidance from me, that's fine, but I know you'll think it through, and I know you pick a path, and as long as the path makes sense, we'll go. Why? Because there was belief, right? So when you make a switch that far on, sometimes you have to go into overdrive to kind of make sure you finish the requirements for whatever the next choice is, so you can still finish on time and all that, which I did. Right. And then you go to do a master's degree in accounting, having only seen accounting really for the first time in undergrad itself, and really only in 2 classes, right? You go ahead and you do it. And I must admit, a difficult year. Some of the hardest work I've seen, some of the toughest professors I've had, and just a very different environment. And a lot of things didn't go according to plan, and it threw off timelines and all kinds of stuff. And you really, really, really had to believe, because if I did anything else apart from stay the course, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you today. I'm very confident in saying that I wouldn't be having this conversation today, because I had to make sure that when the chips were down, we just kept it together. We kept it together, and you say, all right, the plan didn't initially work out. How are we going to now revise our plan and get through the door? And it took a little doing, but we got it done. And so here we are now. And, a few years passed, and I'd gone into banking, where I started off in corporate banking as an analyst. And roughly 2 years into it, I really got to a crossroads again where I was saying, boy, all right, you know, I'm not sure what the next step is, you know, and do I want to do something again quantitative? Do I want to pursue something a bit different? And law was just always in the conversation for years and years and years. And, you know, I took some time of my own accord. I didn't discuss it with anybody. I just took some time of my own accord and I said, boy, you know what? We're gonna do it. So I applied and got in. And I said, okay. And this was right on the cusp of COVID, which now has thrown the university all out of whack because they have no idea how they're going to now administer all these things. Because I did it distance learning through, you know, the University of London. So I had to make sure that I was on top of my thing. When I say pure distance learning, by the way, you know, you're talking no class, no homework, no, just some resources, and you just had to go and basically take one exam for each module. So in doing that, you know, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure because before I even get close to starting exams, I now hear that we have to wear masks and we have to stay inside and we have to do X and Y. And so just adjusting as time goes on and making sure you manage the time wisely and, you know, also continuing to deliver, because I was also fortunately actually progressing in the banking career as well, because by the time I got around to doing the first exam, I had not only been promoted, but I was also now in a third role where I became a portfolio head, a role that I will probably actually tell you a story about a little later on, but a very important role, and one that, you know, when it became open, I made sure that there was no messing about for it, right? But again, I had to believe. And so if you want to hear that story later, I'll definitely explain why belief was important for that context. And, you know, I spent some time in that role and I was faced with a bit of a difficult decision because I thought that, you know, the chapter was coming to an end, but, you know, you want to make sure you make the right step and such. And I took a massive risk and I just decided, listen, I think this is where we have to call it a close. I didn't quite have the next step ready, but I wanted to make sure that we could go forward and, you know, just release myself, really, you know, just get myself ready for that next segment, that next chapter. Excuse me. So that's exactly what I did. So I just made sure to leave in the best way that I could, you know, gave some extra time, helped to train up one of our newest members, and I was on my way and, you know, just trying to work out the details for that next part. And then I actually ended up joining my father and my brother in the family business. And I was, honestly, when most people ask me, what did I do? I was just a part of management because I had my hands in everything. I had my hands in everything. As a matter of fact, right now, there's some videos circulating of demonstrations that I actually did for some of the products. So I've been having people reach out to me saying, boy, you're the chemical guy, you know, in the spray bottle and the nozzle and all that. And I said, yeah, that's me. And, you know, and I definitely got very involved and, you know, tried to, you know, be as helpful as I could. And, you know, it was a pretty rewarding time. You know, definitely some good came of it. But I knew that there was another path coming. There was something I was working towards, and you know, I had some personal ambitions that I wanted to pursue as well. And you know, I was fortunate enough to have met someone in the space of data privacy, and this is what kind of brings me to today in terms of being a data privacy consultant, which I've only been for a few months. But I mean, I tell you, with the workload, it can feel longer than that sometimes. But it's been good so far.
What is data privacy? I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, but I'd really love to get
all right.
Mm-hmm.
So data privacy is all centered around making sure that data is used for its specified purpose, right? Making sure that, so for example, you come to me and you want to say order pizza, right? You have walked into my store and you want to walk out with a pizza. So you say, all right, maybe ask me for my name so that if you have to call out the order, you take my name. Fine. Not a massive problem. You get your payment, I get my receipt, everybody goes on the merry way. You know, like, you know when you order a pizza, they take your phone number in case they need to call you and such. So that makes sense, right? Imagine you ask me for my phone number over the counter while I'm ordering a pizza. Why would you need that if I'm right there to pick it up? No, I'm not saying that there are cases where this doesn't actually happen, but I'm saying this is an example, making sure that data is properly safeguarded and used appropriately. So my role right now, what I do is I help clients put a framework in place so that they can be appropriately aligned for the legislation that's coming into full effect at the end of November this year. That's a very simple one sentence, but the thing about it is, it involves making sure that, we can help you spot any gaps. You can get an even better appreciation of your processes. Who are you sharing the data with? Are you sharing the data with any organization or country overseas? Because their laws might be different from our laws. And you have to make sure that when you're going to send data to another jurisdiction, you want to make sure that you're sending it somewhere where the data protection laws are similar to the jurisdiction that is being sent from, the jurisdiction of origin, right? So I do this with a number of clients, and yeah, that's what I do now.
Okay, awesome. So I want to kind of delve a little bit more into this. We talk about this belief in self.
Mm-hmm.
What does Gregory say that what is at the core of that belief in self? What concepts, what philosophy is so ingrained in you that it now has you believing so strongly and so powerfully in yourself?
I'm going to ask you a question, Auntie. I hate to do this to you, but I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to respond to your question with a question. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where, let's say somebody comes and asks you for help, and you said to them, they come to you and they say, boy, Sandra, are you able to do this? And you say, can I do it? I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. It's not a question, I can do it. You know that feeling you get when you pull it off?
Yes.
That feeling.
Oh, so it's
that
one
feeling.
of those, I totally get you, Gregory. It's not something that we can put our finger on, right, Reverend Anne? This is just an inner knowing, that
it's deeper than that, it's deeper than that. But the thing about it is that all right, so for me personally, there's no better feeling, or rather, there are few better feelings than genuinely accomplishing something, right? Some competing feelings, I really love helping people. I like to see people get things over the line. Like, I love to be a support person. I love to, different things I enjoy and all that. But no one can deny that when you have that sense of accomplishment, whatever that accomplishment is, it's an awesome feeling. It's an awesome, awesome feeling.
We need to differentiate between having an experience of success that strokes our ego. It feels good. And a deeper sense of the realization, but it's not me. I mean, yes, my hands and my feet and my intellect engaged and got this done successfully. But there's something more. There's a deeper sense of presence that is driving my hands and my feet and my eyes and my intellect.
So it definitely, I can't argue that, right? So the thing about it is, I want you to think about just some of the roughest periods you've ever endured in your lifetime. Don't need to get too specific, nothing. Just think about some of the roughest times you've gone through in your lifetime, right? Now, think about this for a second. You're here today, don't it? No matter how bad that day was, you were able to tell the tale the next day. When you felt like your hands couldn't lift anymore, when you felt like you couldn't write anymore, when you felt like you right. No, I agree with you. It's beyond the hands, it's beyond the feet. It's something within. No, so.
Right, so.
Must be, right? And the reason I'm putting it this way is that, and I'm actually really glad you got me to explain this, Anta, because yes, there's always a great feeling of accomplishment when we do the big things. But remember when I said earlier, when you need to find it, when you can appreciate the little things, that's when you know that belief is coming back out, right? So you're in a rough period for like 2 weeks. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. You can't bother go supermarket. You're just buying junk food. You're just doing all the worst things and this and X, Y, Z, right? And then one day, you're back to, maybe not automatically fully back to normal, but you're back on the path. You don't even know how. You don't even know. Something must be driving you, you know. Something must be driving you. And I'm saying all this to say, you see, when you can not only take that further, but harness that within yourself, it gets so much easier. Think about, you know, you'll see people with daily books of daily affirmations, and you know, so many of these encouraging things to keep, you know, to spur them on, and all of that, right? The thing about these affirmations is that it's wiring you to be positive. It's wiring you to believe. But what it's not doing, it's not creating something that wasn't there.
Ah, you got
That's
it.
the difference.
That's the
Right.
essence. Very true.
Yeah. Yeah. You see, we don't have to go anywhere and get God.
Mm-mm.
We don't have to pull God and pull the power into ourselves. It's there. It's like, let's say, the diamond when it is unearthed from the deepest, darkest part of the mountain. It's a piece of muddy looking, you know, rock stone. Right. And one could just say, and fling it away.
Right.
But inside of that piece of ore is beautiful, multifaceted, stone that we know as a diamond. And I've come to, you know, Reverend Elmer used to say that God is not in me like a diamond is like a raisin is in a bun. God is the bun. God is the allness of what the bun is. Another analogy is the ocean and the wave. You know, whatever is in the wave, those same elements are in the vast ocean, and that's how we are in our relationship with God. You know, you said something. I mean, I heard the two things that stood out for me. You never heard the word can't. I believe that our socialization has really, for some of us, played havoc on our consciousness. You know, you can't do that. You know, you're a child, or little girls don't do that, and so on. Those messages come at. Certainly, I got some of those messages when I was pretty young. And if I'd followed that, you can't, I'd never have done my own graduate studies. And another thing you said again, you have, there was trust in your wisdom, trust in that internal essence. When you asked for help and your parents sort of said, you can work it out. That is incomparable. You know, because oftentimes parents fix things for us and then we come back to them for help and we never grow into finding our own solutions to our own issues. So that really, really was very powerful. And what has come up for you as some of the challenges, and how have you dealt with those challenges? Were there challenges with school or friends, or making the decision as to leave the financial services sector to go back into the family business? How have you consciously used the principles that you were taught to address some of the challenges you might have had?
All right, so I'm going to answer that. I'm gonna jump back for 2 seconds.
You're not going to ask another question, right?
Not yet, anyways. So you pointed out that I mentioned that I didn't hear the word, or I didn't hear the phrase "I can't" or "you can't," right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I wouldn't say I didn't hear it on a whole. It's just who I heard it from, right? I didn't hear that from my parents. I didn't hear that from Auntie Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear that from good old Auntie Reverend Anne. I definitely didn't hear it from Auntie Carmen. I didn't hear it from Uncle John. I didn't hear that from any of my, my fellow, young churchgoers. I didn't hear that from their parents, the ones who knew me. I never heard that, right? You hear it all the time, But again, how you shape that environment is so key. It really is so key. And I'm willing to admit, listen, a lot of the time when the doubt comes in my mind, it's probably from me, before it comes to somebody else, even now. Because if I go to somebody right now, I mean, let's be honest, I probably wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here speaking with you this evening if You didn't believe I could do it, right? So these are the things, and so okay. So you asked, about, like, say, for instance, like a challenge where I had to, kind of really put that into effect. All right. So remember I told you I had a story. All right. So when I was in banking, there was a point in time where one of my colleagues had left. He was senior to me. And he took an opportunity elsewhere. And still being still being relatively young, and still, gathering my feet and such, when the question was actually posed to me, do I think I'm ready to slot into those shoes?
Mhm.
I don't often do regrets and all that, but if there's one thing I could have probably changed from back then, that has to be a top contender. Because I said, I'm not sure I'm there yet, right? And unless somebody's going to take you in a direction, because they want to bring, right? If I don't give the energy that they need to see, they might have to kind of revise the plan, right? Now, you might recall, I then said later on I was promoted, and then even after that, I became a portfolio head. When another colleague of mine, again, senior to me, got an opportunity elsewhere, different ball game now. Because I was saying to myself, boy, can't believe it's going on again. And I just trying to, my head was fixed around the wrong thing. It just was. I was fixated on the wrong thing until I said, boy, so nobody's not going to come in and do this again. Nobody's going to come in and take this role. I just refuse to let it happen. So I went to my bosses individually, and I gave them a call respectively, because again, this was just starting COVID, so we're all just going home. And I made my respective calls, and I said, I'm not sure what your plans are for me, but I'm letting you know that I'm applying for this role. So that's just a heads up. Not a long conversation, not anything like that. And particularly on the second call, I was told in no uncertain terms, I'm very happy to have received this call. I'm happy to hear it, right? Because I might have been in mind, but they needed to see that push, because the job was no joke. The role was no joke. Very important, very serious. So this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. I could have easily sat and wallowed in what took place the last time, but I was determined to make sure, say, it can't go so again. And now I get to tell you the story. So that's definitely one big instance for me.
So I'm hearing two things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing that in the first instance, you didn't feel probably ready, you didn't feel confident, you didn't feel for that particular role. So you didn't really, you weren't resonant with it at the time, and it was noticed, or rather, persons will pick up your energy. And in the second instance, it was a total opposite. This is something that you felt that you were ready for, and you had that vibe, and it just evolved for you, right? So you really have to know yourself, and it comes
have to know yourself
within self,
right? And I would encourage everybody, yourselves included. Again, if you think about your life, I don't think this is limited to anybody. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I really doubt it in this instance. If you think about your life, and even if you didn't get something quite right, think about how you feel when you go about something confidently, right? When people think about a charming person, it takes confidence to be charming now. Whether you have it naturally or not, it takes confidence to have that, right? You can't have one without the other, right? When you're going up to go have a, boy, I'm so shy and I want to go meet this bigwig, say hi, go do it. You don't know, they might just say hi back. You just don't know. You just don't know. And so when we put ourselves in a situation where, even in the most basic of manners, we tell ourselves that, boy, them don't want to hear from you, or them can't, but they're not going to do it. You've made a decision in your mind already that that's how it's going to go. Again, it might not play out every single time, but even if it doesn't play out, you've prepped yourself for the next time.
Yeah.
You do it soon enough that the no not going to bother you at all.
That's it, Gregory. You're prepping yourself for the next step. And that is exactly what happens to you when you push yourself out. It's as if something just sends the signal to you to say, something, I can do this.
And I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there, Reverend Ann. So when you practice that and you get to that stage, is it not faith or belief that you've just built up in yourself?
It's both, you know.
It's both.
Yes, it's both.
There you go. You have, again, and it's not that it wasn't there before. You just have to nurture it a little bit. You just have to bring it out. You just have to bring it out.
One step at a
Right?
time.
But you have to do it.
Quite true.
No, we're about halfway through our program. Can you imagine half an hour already? There's a little beyond the half an hour. And I'd just like to invite those of you who have tuned into this program. You're with the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living. Our guest this evening is Gregory Robinson, one of our, what we say, former Sunday school youths, now evolved into a very, very conscious and purposeful, driven, motivated businessman, and sharing with us his story about belief and the value of belief and how that worked for him in his life and how it can also work for you. So please, you can put your questions in the message in the chat, and we will get them. Any questions you might have for Gregory at this time? Something you said earlier, Greg, about the value of feeling, because in the first instance you weren't feeling that role at all. And in our teaching, we speak about it's one thing to intellectualize about a desire that we want something, but it's another thing to feel. You feel it in your fingertips. You feel it at the tips of your. It's at your hair root. It's at the tips of your toes. You feel it with all your heart, body, and soul. Because that's a really powerful value. Are you present to the feeling aspect of your whole spirit, especially when you are about to embark on something new, whether it was study or your professional life? Are you present to that depth of feeling, and how does it drive you?
I feel like if I just give you an out and out yes, I feel like I might be disingenuous, but I certainly believe I'm more present with it now than I was growing up. I think that when I was growing up, certain things came together just so well. And then I had my challenges, but again, I didn't have to think about it quite the same way, because again,
Yes.
the different stages of life put you in a different sense. But then even when I think back to when I was a child, listen, we make life hard, we make life hard person. We make life hard, and we make it very, very, very complicated. I want to run a little scenario by you. Let's say you're in school, and let's say it's a bunch of the boys, and then playing them local football and all that, and the girls come up, and there's that girl that every boy just likes, right? And I've been there. I have been there. So my hands are up. I've been there, absolutely. And you stand around and you say, boy, this guy afraid to talk to her, that guy afraid to talk to her, until nobody goes and talks to her. Why not be that guy? She's waiting for somebody to talk to. She don't look like it maybe, but she's waiting for somebody to talk to. Why not be that guy? You can't lose any more than you're all losing, because none of you is going for it.
First, guy says no.
And guess what? If you have a way with the words, you're probably not going to hear no.
Right, yeah, Gregory.
You're probably not hearing no.
Perfectly right.
Right, So to go back to your original question and say, yeah, I think I'm more in tune with it now. I think that when I go through even good times now, I make a lot of extra effort to understand how I'm connecting with the situation, because even when you want to know why, one of the reasons why, it might not be the main reason, but one of the reasons why is that, remember, all things will come to an end, not just the bad things, but the good things as well. It gives us a chance for a fresh beginning, but it will come to an end. And so depending on how it comes to an end, how you connected with that to understand yourself and the situation through that period of time is going to play a very big determining factor in two things: how you transition to the next thing,
Correct,
and how long it takes you to transition to the next thing, right? And it's something that so many people don't even think about on a regular basis, but it can apply to anything. It can be job to job, school to school, relationship to relationship, and that's platonic or otherwise, by the way, it doesn't matter, right? Things will hurt, things will hurt, but you can't hide from it. You can't run from it. right? But if you try to understand it and understand why it is that this has shaken your core, why is it that this has done X, Y, and Z, and when it is that you become comfortable with what just happened, then you can walk out again.
Yes, that's deep wisdom, Greg.
Right.
Well, I try.
Very, very deep wisdom. And you talk about wisdom.
I'm proud of you for
Yes.
that, because
Well, let me just say, a couple of messages coming up in the chat. I think it's Auntie Lil, Reverend John, and Christina Carty saying that they're very proud of you.
Appreciate it. Very
Yeah.
much appreciated. Thank you.
And you talk about the wisdom, and we acknowledge the wisdom that you're spouting this evening. It's really, really authentic wisdom. At least that's how it's feeling to me. As a professional in the workplace, what a lot of my clients will come to me and ask me to help them to deal with generational differences. What is the title given to millennials? And we find that some millennials are coming out very, very accomplished in terms of qualifications and so on. And many of their direct reports are persons in their 40s and 50s. And that doesn't seem to go down so well at all. What would you say to your peers who are in a position of leadership? And what would you say to the older folk who are challenged by their youthful or having to report to someone who could be their grandchild or how would you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a massive concern for many people in the workplace. I mean, even when I was joining the formal workforce in my, I guess, early 20s and stuff, you get the master's degree, and I had an interview one time, and that was the first thing that was said to me is that, listen, this is impressive and all that, and we're very happy to have you here. You know that people your age come in though, and it causes a bit of a stir. And, they actually weren't targeting me. They were actually saying that, older individuals who've been there for a while and they may not necessarily have that second degree or whatever the case is, they feel very, it makes them insecure. It can make them insecure because you kind of feel like you're basically being, maybe pushed out or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. And, when I was told that, I actually looked back at the person in question and actually said to him, that just doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm obviously not being literal. It makes sense from the standpoint that I get it. You have one degree, or you might have a diploma, and you just have the years of experience. But guess what? Here's where I've already made a misstep. Just have the experience. Nothing don't go so. But where we can bridge that gap, mm-hmm. is making an effort from each side to understand each other. Mm-hmm. If you are a true team player, if you believe in communication, that problem, I'm not going to go as far as to say it's eradicated, but you can greatly reduce that. I have been there. I have had people tell me to my face, well, I don't know if I can manage you, and this and that and X, Y, Z. Listen, I'm just like anybody else. The thing about it is that how you handle people speaks volumes. How you handle people speaks volumes. It could be 5, it could be 50. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. In leading to your question, Andrew, you stated that you as a professional, you're working with your clients and they say that, this generational gap and all that causes some issues and all that. I want to ask you a question, professional to professional. Think about every engagement you've ever had. Think about any project you've ever worked on. Doesn't matter. Tell the truth. No matter what level of the chain you're at, when you know how to communicate, when you are willing to appreciate what everybody is bringing to the table, and you're willing to be wrong, right? You're willing to be wrong. You're willing to hear others out and all that. You know when to put your foot down if you have to, and that's fine. But when you're willing to do that kind of cohesive work, you can't tell me, I didn't take the question off the table. I'm not even asking. Yeah. It goes better. It does.
You're absolutely right. You see, at the end of the day, every one of us as human beings, we want to be valued, we want to be respected, we want to be appreciated. We want to know that we feel needed. And when that's missing, we engage in behaviors that seek it out, even if it's oftentimes negative attention, even if it's punishment or being called out. We're still getting some kind of attention. And so as human beings, I think at the end of the day, the bottom line is we need love.
Let me
like we are loved and appreciated.
Right. And an addendum to that, right? It doesn't matter if the supervisor is older or younger and the other person vice versa. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If you are in, you know what it does? Let me tell you what it does, Auntie. If I am working with you and I go to you, right, and I have diminished, if I'm your supervisor, I'm your boss and I go to you and I have diminished your input for whatever reason, right? There are times when, listen, if you're actually just wrong, then you have to face the music that you're just wrong. Like sometimes, and that's okay. Don't be afraid to be wrong, right? But if I've gone out of my way to diminish your input and your feelings on the matter, two things have just happened yet again. You've not only taken the confidence, that belief, that faith out of myself as your employee to deliver. I've now lost faith in you as a leader because you didn't handle me properly. It's a two-way street. If you go for an interview, it is just as much an opportunity for them to get to know you as for you to know them. It's a two-way street. So that confidence that you are looking for, nobody can come to me right now and make me feel bad in a certain kind of way, and I'm going to look up to you. How's that supposed to work?
Got you.
How's that supposed to work? You might have things about you that are worth admiring, but how can we work as a unit if that's what has just happened, right? Yeah. Which is why it's important. We're human and we're going to mess up from time to time. But guess what? When that communication doesn't go the right way, a good leader or a good teammate, so it doesn't matter, again, which level you're on, go issue that apology. Go say, listen, I didn't handle this the right way. Let me hear the idea again, XYZ, or this is why I shut it down so quickly. Understand the dynamic that you're in. And we live in a very kind of fast-paced society where everybody wants the now, but nobody wants to put in the work like this behind the scenes. Yeah. And then we say, boy, we're having retention problems and we have this problem and with that problem. Go back to basics.
Yes.
Go back to basics. We can all enjoy the math class online. I promise you, pen and paper, you'll be just fine. Yes. Sometimes you have to go back to the basics, and these are certain fundamentals. And I'm harping on all this because, again, I spoke about it earlier this year. I'll say it again now. When I was in church Sunday after Sunday, I didn't appreciate the value of the 4 words, and so it is. You're speaking it into being, right? So when you now go and you speak to yourself in a certain kind of way, well, I don't know if that really worth it enough, I can't really do that. On some level, you're believing it, and you're going to believe it more and more. You want to know how I know? Because I've done it. I have done it. As confident a person as I might be, I've made the mistake of doing that to myself. Even when a bunch of people bigging you up, you can't do that. Okay. You ought not to do that,
So there's an assumption that I have, that having grown up in the temple and sort of lived by the principles, that there, okay, the question is, what spiritual practices do you embody and demonstrate, or do you draw from? Do you do such that you are able to, 1, deal with the issues that come up for you? Number 2, give you the reminder of the wisdom that you have, that you can apply when life gets all wacky. Or when life just is. What are your spiritual practices?
Spiritual in terms of just, making sure you connect with oneself. One that I find, and I think most people could probably benefit from this, one that I find extremely valuable. And when I first heard it, I kind of laughed at it and I said, boy, you do it and you get past that. Just, if you do what what some people call a gratitude check.
A gratitude
check. Yes.
Awesome. So, yes. Tell us more.
A gratitude check. So the end of the day, you take, listen, you can be as nonchalant about this as you will, but perhaps the more you invest in it is the more you'll appreciate it. I don't know, right? But you take a few minutes, maybe a little while longer, maybe you have a little, a nice little glass of juice, whatever your favorite drink is, and you maybe put on a little music, or you just kind of slap it down quickly, right? But just pick 3 good things from the day. 3. Just 3.
Mhm.
Now, I will tell you, if you have a day that is bad enough, you're going to be scrambling for that 3. You're going to be struggling to find that 3.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
see, when you can write down, if it's even, boy, lunch wasn't bad today. You say, I love my food, so I just tell you from now, right? So lunch wasn't bad today. Or you can say, boy, I made somebody smile today. I did something else. I can tell you from experience, I've had days that have been absolutely awful. But I know I helped one person, and that got me to the next day. And this was long before I even knew what a gratitude check was. But that's the kind of thing that does, because I can see the value in that, right? Because it's when the chips are down, that's when you need to believe. You have to find a reason to believe. You have to keep going. It's the hardest thing to do, but you have to keep going.
Definitely.
You have to keep going, right? And that one I think is probably the one I'm going to go with. That one is it's massive, and honestly, just 2 that you can practice on any regular basis without any kind of just dedicated set time is honestly just the company you keep. You want positivity around you. You want whatever your target is, but you want positivity around you. You want encouragement. You don't want yes men, because we're all here to grow, but you want positivity. You want that kind of nurturing thing with like, boy, say, listen, things are rough. You have a support system, but know that it's a give and take. If somebody does right by you, you need to return that favor. That's 1. And 2, honestly, watch how you speak to yourself. Be careful of how you speak to yourself. So, you make a mess and you say, boy, can't believe someone gonna mess that up, man. I'm gonna do it again, man. And you say, all right, what did we learn this time? How do we make sure we don't do it next time? Because the habits are very easy to form, especially the bad ones.
Yes.
Bad habits are easy to form. Good ones are much harder, but bad habits are easy to form.
Mhm.
So I think that's
So
my answer for you.
I'm hearing the gratitude check,
Mhm.
and I am also hearing positive self-talk as a powerful way of really talking to yourself and challenging some of the stuff that might come up that tells you, you're not good enough, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I find that in my many years on this planet, those voices still come. What I am now present to is that back in the day, Reverend Anne, you remember Flit?
Mm,
And Reverend John, I think he's online listening. There
yes.
was a thing called Flit, which is like modern day Baygon, or one of those insect
Insect
repellents.
spray. Mm.
So you just go get the Flit and just zap the insect or whatever is causing an issue. So we have to flit away some of these thoughts that come up that are, or ego voice, or not good enoughness, saying that you can't, you shouldn't, you oughtn't. It's going to fail. What do you think you are? And again, you talk about belief in self. I want to just put that self in a capital S. Because it's really beyond the belief in the ego self. It's that infinite, absolute, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent one that we know as a
You see
source
that
of all
prefix omni, Auntie? That prefix omni, right? It represents everything, right? The whole, the 360, right? You see, when you said put a capital S for self, I'm going to encourage you rather to put the capitals for the entire word. Because what people have to understand is that
belief
if you
in self.
Right, and just all caps, right? Because if you leave out a part of it, you can't get the full results. You can't be 100% and give 100%.
Yes.
You can give 100% of 90 if you're at 90%, but you can't give 100% if you're at 90, right? To give yourself the best, you have to give yourself the best. It sounds silly, but it really just is one of those things. And we have to appreciate the fact that when we look into this, we must appreciate that when we look into this, if you are, listen, let me rephrase that. I apologize. Let me rephrase that. You see, the human mind, the brain, that's the most powerful thing we have on this planet. The brain has created so much of the technology that the brain is a very powerful thing. If you don't wire that correctly, if you don't take care of that, if you don't pay attention to that, you notice how stress can make your stomach upset, but your food was fine, right? The stress will make your heart start to skip a beat, but your health is fine. When people go to the doctor sometimes and you have a clean bill of health, but you notice something wrong. It's the mind, it's the mind. So if you don't take care of it properly, you can't be fully okay. You just can't be. Can't be. And
we have to differentiate between the brain and the mind. Because the brain
agreed.
is
brain is the instrument.
It's the instrument, yeah.
Which the mind works.
Yeah, the mind is where all things begin and end. I mean, the brain is a circuit keeper, that which is like the GPS power plant, and all the wires that we see across the island. That's our nervous system,
right?
Getting to the different parts of our body, but there's a core that's behind it all, and it's the mind, and that is where all the power lies. And this is a new conversation, Reverend Anna. We are at the top of the hour. Can you imagine the time has ended?
I wanted to say something to Greg, because he has a strong sense of appreciation for each person's contribution to the whole. So when you're talking about the generational gap and who is up there and who is to report to who, he understands that everybody is priceless to the vision and the mission of an institution or to a project.
Absolutely.
Kudos to you, Gregory.
Yes, definitely.
Not many people who understand that.
Appreciate
I'm
that.
going to do one last question, and we're going to wrap up. We've had a question in the chat. Do you see yourself living abroad? And that you can, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what's in your future? What can you see right now as in your future? And would abroad be part of that?
What do I see in my future? Just about anything.
Anything.
Yeah, I mean, I might have a good idea of some of the things I might not be that interested in anymore, but I've never really closed off my mind to anything. And considering that it's very hard for me to explain how I even got here, there's a good ways ahead. You just never know what can happen. And as far as living abroad, I'm actually always open to living abroad. Always open to it. In the near future, I do expect to remain here. But even if I were to go abroad at some point, I would expect at some point, even if it is retirement, to return.
Got you. And that's a powerful way to wrap up. It's been absolutely awesome. I mean, this hour went so quickly, and I hope it was as good for you as it was for me. And,
it was.
And for our listeners, thank you all for joining and being part of this wonderful experience with our guest, Gregory Robinson, this evening. Reverend Anne, I'm going to turn it over to you to do the official thank you for Gregory.
Vote of thanks.
Greg, remember that request I made of you yesterday when we spoke yesterday. Are you up for it or what?
I'll give it a try.
Okay, so Reverend Anne.
What a tremendous time we had together. I mean, to watch you speak about your growth and unfoldment and the true essence of yourself and your belief, as well as your belief in all those around you, your strong support system. It has been a great time for us, and you are a wonderful role model, and you are full of wisdom. I mean, yes, Gregory, we give thanks for this hour that we spent with you. And thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Vance, and all who have contributed to this marvelous series that we are enjoying now of just homegrown Temple of Light wisdom. That true essence that is revealing itself. We are proud of you, Gregory.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
My heart is full. And in this fullness, I'm going to ask to do the closing affirmative prayer.
All right, no pressure. Okay.
No pressure.
Okay, so as we come to a close in this session, I want to take a moment to thank everyone on this call, Reverend Ann, Auntie Sandy, Vance. I want to express my gratitude to Auntie Lilith, Christina, Uncle John, and anyone else in the audience, as well as Dawn for posing the question. This has been an awesome time. I pray that everyone will be able to take something from my message. I'm hoping that I've made a lasting impact. And, honestly, above all else, I'm generally hoping that when we walk in the walls of Temple of Light and anywhere else, we can really appreciate what it is that we're saying, what it is that we're hearing, what it is that we're feeling. For me, in those years where I was saying the words and, you think you mean them, but when you really realize what they mean, it redefines whether you actually meant them. It doesn't take away from the genuity, but it does represent that shift of mind, similar to what we we're just discussing. And I want this lesson to transcend us all and become a part of our everyday life and our everyday activities. I remain very confident and will continue to be so, that all this will be well and that all this is so. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you so much, Greg. And friends, as we close this evening, if this program or any of the wonderful activities that we have, that we offer here at the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living, if any of this has been an inspiration to you, do feel free to, just hit our donate button and continue to help us to be a beacon of light onto the world. We really, really appreciate your kindness, your generosity, and your sense of givingness. We know that it's God that gives through us, and so we are so grateful. And so we've come to the end of another Lifeline this evening. It has been a pleasure. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Reverend Ann. Thanks, Vance. And we look forward to seeing you next month in June, at the end of June. That would be our next Lifeline is June 29. And we, of course, will let you know who our guest is. And we look forward to having you participate with us. Love you, bless you, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. And I'll see you